Hey everyone, I'm Franklin.
And I'm Matt, and today we're here with Cody from Westminster Effects.
What's up?
All right, we're excited today to have Cody here with us. He's got all of his good pedals and stuff with him, and we are very excited to find out a little bit more about what you do, because
Yeah.
I've been playing pedals and effects for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I've never opened one up, and I don't know what's inside. It might be
Lots of hamsters on little wired wheels and stuff like that, and maybe a nuclear fusion reactor.
It's sweet.
So I make no promises of Prop 65 warnings and all that kind of stuff in California. So.
Cool. So his stuff might blow up, but it sounds really good in the meantime.
Yes. I have had 2 or 3 when I plugged them up. I had a couple things in the wrong way, and you hear you open it up and capacitor's blowing or whatever. So that's always fun.
Cool.
But, that's neither here nor there. And
so I'm going to.
I do promise. I promise I test everything.
It's cellophane first before I touch the button again.
You need bubble wrap.
I personally, I bought a couple of pedals from you, and I've got a couple of his things on the board, and we'll talk about those and look at doing some demo video of them kind of after the show. But what I want to know really is, because I've never asked you this.
Oh no!
Exactly. You know how I feel.
Here we go.
Exactly.
Here we go.
Here, Franklin.
Come out.
How did you get started doing this? Because it seems like a very technical thing to already have to know how to do.
So, oh boy, here we go. The backstory. So, I was working at an advertising agency in downtown Greenville several years ago, and which is what you do when you have a journalism degree. Which I graduated in 2009 from North Greenville. Great school, just a crappy degree. I graduated just in time. Graduated just in time for that entire industry to realize, we're not making money anymore. How do we even do this? And so what do you do with that? Well, you work survival jobs until you can find a social media management job. Yeah. And so that went toxic, just pure toxic. And I left that job with the intention of doing freelance work with blogging, social media, etc. And I had some of that. And in the meantime, I've always been a DIY guy. I've changed out pickups like so many guitarists have. And I was like, how about I build a pedal? I like pedals. I've always had a stupid huge board, except for that one time I made a mistake and sold them all and got a multi-effects unit. And
throwing shade.
Yeah.
We'll get to you guys next.
Well, I mean, and in all fairness, that was the pre-Helix days, and it was a Digitech. It was the RP1000.
I have an RP80 still sitting in my closet at home.
Yes. So I got a Blues Breaker kit from General Guitar Gadgets, and I was like, that was fun. I can make money off this. And I was like, I have marketing ideas on top of that, being the social media management at the advertising agency, and I've always been kind of a creative guy, and I was like, well, I'm creative, I like guitar, I like theology. Let's just roll with this. So hence the name Westminster Effects, which, even though I'm Reformed Baptist, sounds a lot better than 1689 Effects. So I'm not Presbyterian, just for the record. and so it just rolled from there. My first models were the Tulip Tap Tempo, the Regeneration Buffer, the Piper Drive, and the Knox 800. And from there, I just rolled dumb theological puns across the board. And a couple of years ago, my father-in-law generously invested, and we acquired Nose Pedal, and the rest is history. I did my first NAMM at Summer NAMM last year in Nashville. Did my first big NAMM just last month, and it keeps me busy, and I get to work from home, and it's awesome. So
sounds
there you go.
Phenomenal. That's awesome. I'm just. It's one of those things where I stumbled across your stuff way ahead of knowing that you were
that I was the guy.
So close, you were the guy.
I think my drive was about 15 minutes. So, well, technically 17 because I got distracted by an Instagram message from one of my endorsed artists on the way. They were like, hey, somebody broke the jack on my Chick-fil-A, and I was just like, oh, for real? I guess I'll fix it. I will happily fix it, but that person's a moron, which is neither here nor there. So, proceed.
So, it's funny, like, I had a nose tap tempo years ago.
That was pre-me, yeah.
And so like I had it beforehand, and then I had laughed and joked about the Osteen pedal, which you can see that we've got here.
It is named the Osteen Distortion for good reason. Yeah.
And so I knew about these things ahead of time. Then it was funny one day I ended up putting two and two together and was like, oh my gosh, you're just right around the corner.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought your stuff was neat, and as worship guitarists, which is what the show's about. If you're not a worship guitarist and you're here, I'm glad you're here. Buy some stuff, but
hashtag buy pedals.
Yeah, please. I think it's so cool that on our boards we can have theologians and all these overall Christian things, and you can look down in the middle of worship and be reminded of what you're there for.
Exactly. Yeah. So the elevator pitch I developed when I exhibited at last year's G3 conference in Atlanta, which for those of you who don't know is a huge theology conference. It's really, really good. So Todd Friel, if anybody knows him, of Wretched Radio and Wretched TV, crashes my booth, and he is as freakishly tall as they say. Tall, lanky guy, big, over-the-top radio voice and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, if you were wondering where all the noise was coming from, we got guitar effects. He's like, what's this about? And I was like, well, regardless of whether we like the style, the modern worship style is here. Like, it's not going anywhere for a while. So my goal with Westminster Effects is to equip church guitarists and encourage them to read better books, or even just a book. And he's like, or you. So I told you I was going to break something. So if I punch you in the face, I'm sorry. But I hold up the Edwards Overdrive, which is the right side of the E89 here, and I was like, like Jonathan Edwards, and he goes, or you can stomp on him. I was like, you want to stomp on somebody? I got the Osteen Distortion. He doubled over with his super over the top laugh. And he's like, "Thank you for that," and he just left. And so that's it. Is I'm trying to equip these guys, but also remind them, hey, like we've got 2,000 years of church history, or as Steve Nichols says on the 5 Minutes in Church History podcast, like this is family history. These are our older siblings in the faith, whether you want to talk about Piper, who's still kicking, or the Puritans, or Calvin, or Augustine from 1700, 1800 years ago. No, 1600 years ago, sorry. Before anybody roasts me online for that. I'm sure that'll happen. But we have such a rich history that we can learn from, as opposed to so many modern Christians want to treat it as we have the Book of Acts and then we have Billy Graham. And there's so much more than that, even, just 100+ years ago with, well, I guess 150-ish with Spurgeon. And then, God, you go Reformers, you got Anselm, John Chrysostom, like the names just roll, and they had such rich experiences with God through Scripture. And as James White puts it, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. And so let's learn from them,
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
or learn what not to do in the case of Osteen.
The good part about it is that as much as it makes fun of him, that pedal rocks. So
it is my go-to for high gain purposes. It's chunky and delicious.
Oh, all the health and wealth you can get.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
While we're at it. And that's one thing I love about it too, is that not only do you're not pigeonholed in just kind of one thing. You've got so many effects. You've got delays. You've got reverbs, and so you really can build an entire modern praise and worship appropriate
pretty
setup.
Much, pretty much
with what you've got, and I've just thought it was neat because I don't see anybody else really doing this.
Sure. Yeah.
I was blown away the first time I got to look at them. So here come some of the fun little goofy questions.
I'm okay with that.
What's your favorite pedal? There's got to be one that you make every time you make it. You're like, yeah.
In terms of actually building it.
Let's do building and sound.
Man. In terms of building it, the Puritan, I guess, has a trim pot inside where if I have it set too low, it just sounds like butt. But if I turn it up too high, it also sounds terrible, but it's glitchy, and there's like this little sweet spot in the middle where when I find that, when I set it, it's just like, yes, it sounds amazing.
There it is.
And so yeah, that one in terms of buildability, I guess, and that kind of put me on the spot. I'd never really thought about that. So well played. In terms of actual tones, I love the Osteen distortion. I really do. I'm a mid 2000s pop punk and emo kid at heart. I still listen to My Chemical Romance. I will wear that, and I will wear that proudly.
Everybody likes that song. Is it Helena? Is that how you say it? Is that the name of it?
Helena is how they pronounce it, at least. Yeah.
Everybody likes that song. If you say you don't, you're lying.
3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge is just a masterpiece of an album, in my opinion. And if you disagree, you're wrong. But like even Blink-182, Senses Fail, Newfound Glory, etc.
Oh yeah.
Like man, that's and even further on into like the 2009 to 12 metalcore, post-hardcore type stuff. I still play music that sounds like it should have been written 10 years ago in my own band. And like
it's all right, I do Eagles covers, I get it.
There you go. Yeah. So I mean, the Osteen, coupled with the Calvin compressor and the Zwingli are my always ons, and it just kind of gives that extra secret sauce going into the Osteen. It's just like, it's just a wall when I want it to be, So, but it also cleans up really well,
which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he does look pretty legit in those suits.
Yeah.
And he does have nice teeth.
Yeah. The what is it? The sheep's clothing line. Anyway,
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And that's the other thing too is as you're out looking for overdrives, I've been in that category before where I was like, I need an overdrive pedal. And next thing you know, you've got a list of 15 and you've looked for every demo video online. And, it's one of those things where if you look for compressor pedals, you find your 3-knob and your 4-knob and all this kind of stuff. And, and there's so many different options. And then when I get to your website, it's one of those things where, your compressor has the same stuff everybody else does. So, it's not like, some kind of like, well, I'm going to do this. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do this.
Do it.
We've talked about it in an earlier episode, how sometimes people get the feeling that Christian things are not as good as other things. There's Christian movies that people say they're not as good as other things.
And they're not.
Sometimes they're not. But that Christian musicians aren't as good of musicians as other people. And we've talked about apples and oranges, but there is absolutely no stone unturned here. They're not Christian pedals that will kind of get you there. You've got the real deal here.
Yeah. And the goal with that is, it's like the old Protestant work ethic, where Luther, even said, and I'm kind of twisting Luther here, but Luther was adamant the Christian shoemaker doesn't make excellent shoes by putting little crosses on them. The Christian shoemaker makes excellent shoes by making excellent shoes to the glory of God. And it's God, I'm having a brain fart. Oh yeah, and the other Luther quote is talking about faith and works is God doesn't need your good works, but your neighbor does. And it happens that in every occupation you are fulfilling a need, whether you're building guitar effects, whether you're building wells in Africa, or whether even if you're working at a drive-through. Like there's no shame in any of those. You're improving the world and helping steward creation. So my neighbor needs a compressor. So I'm going to build a compressor, and obviously it's more explicitly Christian than most of the brands out there. And I know there's a couple out there that have some Christian themes. I think Fox Pedal did like the Kingdom or something like that, and they've got some cool stuff. But at the same time, like with my target being specifically church guys, and be like, hey, read these guys. I'm just going to knock something over. I'll end up throwing something. But that's the goal is, hey, let's make really good stuff. And in the past, I've made some really crappily built ones. Full disclosure, like I used to spray paint stuff and now it's powder coated, so that's night and day there. But let's shoot for the moon in terms of quality and see how it all works out.
Absolutely. And that goes right into so one of the previous episodes. What we talked about is everything you do under the glory of God. So when you show up to practice on time, when you know your parts, all that kind of stuff. Not only that, but it is also worship. So as you do everything you can do under the glory of God, you're not only are you worshiping, are you getting better, are you getting closer to what He wants. I mean, it all falls directly in line, and I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And
there's a really cool. I don't know if dichotomy is the right word. It probably isn't. But I've experienced both sides of, like, there's no reason ever for a Christian to do a crappy job at something. Whether you're learning guitar parts, whether you're building something, whether you're just at an occupation where you don't own the business. At the same time, like, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to miss a solder point every now and then where, a component, when I test it, is resting up against where it should be, so it's fine. And then when it gets to the, shipping bounces it around, and all of a sudden it doesn't work when it gets there. I'm going to make mistakes, and I've had so many people... That sounds terrible. That sounds like I have so many defective units. But I've had people show me so much grace at the same time of saying, like, hey, man, just want to let you know I got this thing and it doesn't work. And I'm just like, dang it. But, you get them a return label, you fix it, and you move on. And then they're happy with it until it breaks again. But... No, I'm just kidding.
We do stomp on these things.
We do step on these. So every now and then a knob is going to pop off. It's got a little set screw. It's okay. Calm down about your knobs. Yeah. But you get what I mean. Is when you're dealing primarily with Christians who understand the grace of God through Jesus. They're just going to treat you like that. So that's one thing I will say about people who buy my stuff is they've treated me with a lot of grace over the past few years. Absolutely.
And speaking of that whole thing, as a Christian, if you ever buy a pedal from him, from anybody else, and it shows up busted, please show that grace. It happens, It's unfortunate. Nothing's perfect.
I've only told off one or two customers ever. But they deserved it. when you start off your email with this entire project has been a disaster, it's like, I had to swallow some pride in my response because I wanted to blow him up. So I had to show some restraint. But at the same time, it's like a little bit of grace would be nice,
Oh yeah.
And you're just gonna have that sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So moving on from here, what's some new stuff to look out for from you? So we're going to look at some of these and demo some of these things.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon? Because I'm excited too.
Well, in terms of stuff that just got announced at NAMM, I guess we could even go back to Summer NAMM with the Geneva Amp Sim, which you own. That's been my best seller since I announced it, and that it's not up here right now, but it simulates a Vox AC30 top boost channel, has an XLR out, so that can be your amp. But it's all analog. So that's the best part about it is everything reacts like a tube amp would, or at least pretty close. The way that Brian Nutter at Nutter Guitars put it was, you can play with electrons instead of ones and zeros. I was like, that's just brilliant. Like, that's perfect.
I can vouch for this thing, by the way.
Yeah.
I absolutely...
Vouch away.
Let's do it.
Be my advertising guy.
I absolutely love it. It does react like an amp does. Even with a Les Paul cleaning it up, it does what it's supposed to do. There's a lot of headroom, and for you guys that maybe don't have ISO cabs, or you plug in direct, and you're looking for a way to really kind of bump it up to where, maybe your church will let you use amps, but you're trying to get there, this is the perfect thing to use.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked the internet over and haven't found much better
and especially in the worship world, most guys are running either a pristine clean amp or an amp on the edge of breakup. And this is, everything is the amp is the pedal platform, and you get most of your actual tone from all this stuff. And so it's perfect for that. It's hey, let's set this thing clean or even a little bit dirty and play it as you normally would, And it's what, a 1590 BBS to get technical with the enclosure size, so it's not huge. It's basically the footprint of this but shorter. And doesn't take up a ton of space, or you could even have it live off your board. Just it's durable, so whatever.
That's generally how I've run it. Is just I'll run out of my pedal board and into where it is, because it's sitting right next to the input to the board.
Yeah, and there you go.
And it's perfect.
Yeah, so stuff that I released actually at NAMM, you can see the Piper drive here. So that's a low gain. It's the version 2. For the record, and I've told this on my own podcast and probably another podcast too, John Piper actually owns a prototype of the Piper drive.
Nice.
It was when I had no idea what he was doing, but he's originally from Greenville.
Yeah.
And so he was at Taylor's First Baptist for an event, and there's a swarm of people around old Johnny Pipes, and he looks so overwhelmed, like he's just so uncomfortable with all that attention. And I give him a Piper drive, and his response was, "I don't know what to do with this." So I was like, you can if you ever learn how to play guitar, you can use this to change how it sounds, or you can use it as paperweight, but I just wanted you to have it. So it's a lower gain. It can get pretty raunchy, and actually gets glitchy if you max out the gain. Some people will use it as an always on type of preamp kind of thing, and it stacks really well too. You got the Puritan right here, where if you can, it's inspired by like an AC30, AC15, dimed with a treble booster in front. It's got a nice little accentuation of the mid-range, and it can get nasty, and it also stacks well. So I'm using that as kind of like a third or fourth stage right now. You also see up there the E89, so that's got the Edwards Overdrive version 2 and the 1689 version 2, which is respectively my Blues Breaker-ish and Tube Screamer-ish circuits. You could compare that to something like a JHS double barrel, if you had to. But this is soft touch, where JHS isn't. As far as I'm aware, unless they just announce something that I don't know about. So also within that, so you got version 2 Edwards, version 2 1689. I also have the Dually, which is version 2 Edwards, which is kind of like my answer to a King of Tone style pedal.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun too. So here's the nerdy part about the 1689 is, so obviously Westminster, it's a Reformed thing.
Right.
So you got the Westminster Confession of Faith in 1646. And then you have the 1689 London Baptist Confession. Most of it was just kind of copied straight off from the 1646. Like they pretty much plagiarized it and then said, well, let's change the stuff that we disagree with. And the 1689 is a Tube Screamer style pedal, so the joke is the 1689, both the pedal and confession, take something great and make it better. So
nice.
So in version 2, you've got a clean blend, which a lot of people asked for. Personally, I'll just be transparent. I don't understand the clean blend allure, but I caved into market pressure, so whatever. There you go. I am a capitalist at heart, obviously.
So for those watching, if some of what he said is kind of, and now I'm doing it now too. If some of what he says is a little, you were like, what did he say? What he's saying is that he has got your Ibanez green Tube Screamer and made it better.
Yep.
A lot of his things will take your Vox AC30, AC15 sound, which you all know what that is.
Yep.
And make it better. So what he's saying is, for you praise and worship musicians, that the regular things you use, this will help.
This is better, even. And I've even A-B'd the Edwards. This is the Edwards version 1 that I A-B'd, but I A-B'd it, and now I'm hitting stuff. But I A-B'd it with the version 4 Morning Glory, and mine sounded better, and 2, mine was quieter. There was less hiss involved when you pulled up the gain. So take that for what it's worth.
There you have it.
So we have demo videos. It sounds good, I promise.
So JHS will have you guys on next week. No,
I will say this. I met Josh Scott at NAMM, and he's a really cool guy. He actually went to college with my cousin Amos, who does all of my demo videos.
Nice.
And I intentionally made the interaction awkward, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I've known Amos for years." I was like, "Hey, me too." But he was a really cool guy, and they have a pedal builders summit every year at NAMM, where everybody like eats pizza and drinks beer, and I didn't go this year because I already had plans, because I didn't know about that. I have a couple friends in Los Angeles, so I hung out with them. But next year, I will eat pizza and drink beer.
So I think it's funny that we got Westminster Effects here, and one of the funniest or best parts of the video so far is that you have messed with everybody in the pedal and the theological industry.
Oh, absolutely! I will step on toes. Yeah.
So let's talk about NAMM a little bit, since you went to the big NAMM, and I've never been.
Man, it is nuts. It really is nuts.
I bet it's bonkers.
You want to talk about Providence? So it's 4 days. Gobs and gobs and gobs of people, and my voice was just shot after the first or second day. And one of the really cool things that they do is provide free parking for the parking's free for exhibitors. So I drove my rental car to Angel Stadium there in Anaheim, and me being a big baseball fan, obviously by the Braves logo on my looper.
What? Where?
Right. and the tattoo on my leg. But anyway, so parked at Angel Stadium, get on the shuttle bus, and there's these people with their badges that say vocal mist, and it was like a personal nebulizer for your vocal cords. And I was like, tell me about this vocal mist. And they took me to their booth, let me try it out, and within 2 minutes my throat was gold. And it lasted the whole day, and I ended up buying one. So look up vocal mist, all you singers. That junk is over there in the corner with your wife. Go check that out. It's amazing. I can let you try it out and disinfect it beforehand. Sweet. But yeah, I mean, total Providence there. Also met some really cool people. Also re-met some really cool people, such as Simon Campling from G7th Capos.
Nice.
I was introduced to him via my previously mentioned cousin Amos, where they are working with Hope for Justice, which is working to end sex slavery.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I met him through all that kind of stuff, and he comes to my booth, and we're talking, and it's just so funny, because they're from the UK, so obviously everything just sounds so sophisticated and nice, and just so deadpan. It was just like, yeah, this is old hat for me. He gives me a capo, and he's like, all right, I got to go downstairs. Ed Sheeran's here. Can I process this for a second? But you walk around, and it's just like there's famous people everywhere. I'm not a Slipknot fan, but Mick Thompson of Slipknot literally walked right by my booth with his entourage. I walked right by John Petrucci a couple times.
Real quick, let's backpedal.
Yeah, sure.
Entourage. Were they all wearing masks?
No, he was though.
Okay, just checking.
He was, and I get it. I'm not going to hate on him for that. I don't love Slipknot, but that's your shtick. So go with your shtick if you're going to make a public appearance. I don't mind that at all. Like I was telling my wife, and she's like, "Really?" And I was like, "That's his thing. Whatever." But I re-met AJ Bartholomew of Eyes Set to Kill, where I had met their other guitarist, Alexia Rodriguez at Summer NAMM, where my wife ran into her and she's like, hey, come check out my husband's pedals. And so now I have both of them on my artist roster.
Nice.
Which is awesome. They're really cool people to work with. And she actually just messaged me on Instagram saying, hey, somebody broke my Chick-fil-A. They broke the power jack. And I was like, crap. Oh, no. I think I'd mentioned that before. No. I don't know. But yeah, I did mention that. It's been a long week. But yeah, otherwise, NAMM is just like, it's so big that I literally could not. It's not just that I didn't have a chance. It's I could not have gotten to every booth. It's expansive. I definitely met my steps goals every day. Just trying to, whatever. But, some of the cool stuff is, like Victor Wooten did a really cool Q&A that I talked about on my podcast where the two things that really stood out to me, which is this is directly beneficial for worship guitarists or worship musicians in general. So there you go. So somebody said, what was it? Which one do I want to start with? Dang it, I'm blanking. We'll just do the really cool one, where somebody asked him, what are the qualities you look for in a great musician? And he said, let me simplify that for you. I look for, in a great musician, I look for what I look for in a great friend. He's like, if I have a guitarist on stage with me during a gig and he's screwing up, he's like, you're not going to know, at least from me. He's like, I'm going to make him better, one, but two, I'm not going to let you know that he's screwing up. We'll talk about it after the game and be like, oh, look, we need to work on this. And he's like, but I'm not going to throw him under the bus in front of people. And I thought that was really helpful for whether, you got a guy that doesn't know the natural number system, which for the record, I don't. I also don't know theory for anything. So sometimes, sometimes people need to be a little more patient with me, but then at the same time, I've played with guys who, sometimes stuff just doesn't click that day, and that's okay. Yeah.
Oh, I have those a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yes. You kidding me? You're like, oh, man. Anyway, so in terms of actual skill level, like I'm here and you're up here and whatever, but which is why once we start doing the demo stuff, you will be playing instead of me, unless you want me to play a little metal, which I can make that happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it was just so helpful, like and Victor Wooten, as far as I know, isn't even a Christian, but God has shown him the common grace enough that he has grasped that concept, and we can learn from that. One of the other cool things was I met Tosin Abasi of Animals as Leaders. He has started his own guitar and pedal line. And one of the cool things with him was, he's got these multi-scale 8, 7 strings. But he also had some 6 strings, like a Telecaster style. And these guitars are just insane. And so there's a crowd of people around him and nothing pretentious about him. He'd just be like, you want to try it? Like he'd just point at people. I'm sitting there like, please don't ask me. But I talked to him for a second and he was just so chill, not assuming at all. And I think a case could be made that he's one of the top 5 guitarists in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe even the best. And he was just like, yeah, I'm a guy.
You gotta love that because there's. Again, and we've talked about this before too, music has a tendency to make people believe that they're more than they are. Like a really good guitarist, a lot of times will walk around acting like he's really good at life. And so when you've got somebody like that...
And there are even pedal builders, I won't name anybody, but there have been a couple of pedal builders where I've talked to them and be like, you think you're really cool, don't you? But by and large, like 95% of the pedal builders you'll meet are awesome guys, just super down to earth. They understand that I'm a dude, you're a dude, whatever. So yes. I didn't even mean to do that. But I met Matt Hoops of Reliant K fame in 1981 Inventions. I had actually met them the entire band of Reliant K a couple times way back in the day. The first time I ever saw Reliant K was at Biltmore Baptist Church in Asheville. And they were touring on The Anatomy of the Tongue-in-Cheek. And I got them to sign an I'm Lion-O t-shirt that I had made myself. And Teeson's reaction was, sorry we didn't play that song. We really suck at it right now. But at the same time, I didn't tell him that story. I will if I have the chance to talk to him again. But we follow each other on Instagram, and he's like, yeah, I've seen your stuff, and it's pretty cool. And I'm like, you are such a bigger deal than I am. It's like, why aren't you telling me to just go on with the rest of the peons over there, And that was a pretty cool experience, just talking to guys who have made it in one area of the industry or another, and they just treat you like a normal human, and they act like normal humans. That's always refreshing for me.
Absolutely. And so, as we're kind of wrapping this up, I'm going to ask this question. And we talked about this some earlier before we started. The WorshipCast, a lot of what we've kind of headed towards in our direction lately is talking about as musicians, especially worship musicians, that what we're trying to do is to help equip you not only to be better musicians but better worshipers, music or not. And so, what advice would you give to guitarists in order to help them along?
Read the Bible.
I did it again.
It's okay. I'll probably do it here in a second again. A lot of people get intimidated by reading Scripture, but we have to understand that God wrote it through regular dudes for regular guys. When Jesus called his disciples initially, he was calling fishermen, like regular old blue-collar guys. The Bible wasn't written at a PhD level. You can do PhD level stuff to it all day. Textual criticism, particularly of the lower kind, because it's actually orthodox. Like textual criticism, parsing Greek nouns, and all that kind of stuff. That's great. Awesome. But the Bible was written for normal guys to understand, and if you read it in context, you will discover a wealth of both wisdom, and you'll know God. That's one of the things that kind of irritates me sometimes is we want experiences with God, but we don't really want to know God. Well, if I'd said, yeah, I love my wife, she's super petite and has blonde hair and green eyes, my wife would be like, I'm 5'9" and have really bright dyed red hair and brown eyes. So if we need to know who we're praising. We need to know who he is, how he acts, and what he's done. And so take, if you read 2 chapters a day in the New Testament, you'll read the whole thing twice in a year. So whether you want to read the whole Bible or a book, I would just say don't read. There's nothing wrong with a devotional book,
right?
But they often have 1 or 2 verses yanked out of context and then some feel-good stuff, and that's fine. But if you're just starting out, read the Gospel of John. That's usually the most recommended book in regards to new Christians, or even read Ephesians, which talks a lot about your identity in Jesus, which is so helpful, and also really explicitly lays out justification by faith alone in Christ alone.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes. So read the Bible, know who you're talking about and talking to, and that in and of itself will equip you to, 1, worship better, and 2, lead your congregations in worship better.
Oh, yes.
Because, well, that's another episode for me. I think you've already done that one, right?
Yeah.
So I'll spare you my rant on that. You can just listen to episode number whatever. And but read the Bible, and then read guys who handle God's word with care. I'm a big fan of Piper, obviously. So the book Desiring God wrecked my theology, where And, guys like Edwards or Calvin, even if you don't agree with Calvin on soteriology, that's okay. The guy, he's just universally known as a master handler of Scripture. So read these dead guys. Read some of these guys who are going to treat the Word with care and dig in. There's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. You're going to get some stuff wrong, and that's what the church is for. We're a body with multiple organs. And, one of those organs is kidneys, and they help filter stuff out. So,
never heard it put that way. And that is, oh man, how perfect is that?
Yeah. You've got digestion, you've got filtration. I could probably make a couple other jokes, but I'll refrain from those and keep it G-rated for us.
I know where it's headed. That's very true.
Yes. However, read the Bible, read guys who handle God's Word with care, and if you don't like reading, listen to it. I've turned into this last several years into more of an auditory learner, so sometimes instead of sitting down and reading, I'll have it playing in my earbuds or just on my phone. You can get stuff off audible.com. There's so many resources right now that a lack of knowledge is only possible through a lack of effort. So that's not to crush anybody, but it's just to be a little bit blunt and say like, hey, let's get after it.
Absolutely. And so from the pedal builder himself, he wants you guys all to know to not only to buy his pedals and be better musicians.
Read the Bible.
Read the Bible. Be better worshipers. It doesn't get any more plain than that.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're about here with the WorshipCast too. Please, follow that advice and do that. And now comes the part of the episode where you've told me something before that I want to make known to everyone out there.
Well, I don't know what's happening right now, but
you're gonna love this.
Oh boy!
So we all know and like to listen to James Duke. He's got an Elliott 357 model that he makes with those guys.
Sure.
And you met him.
I did.
Tell us what he's like.
He's a good guy. Very introverted.
Yeah.
Very, very introverted. He seemed kind of, and I understand, he seemed kind of uncomfortable with the fact that he was getting attention, which, hey, more power to him. But when he was at the Elliott booth doing a demo, and he was playing, he was just like, I'm in my element. And like that was when he really opened up, was when he had a guitar in his hand. And I totally understand that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, my interaction with him was all of 15 seconds or so, but seemed like a pretty genuine guy as far as I could tell for 15 seconds. But he was just like, I don't know what to do right now.
So, at some point we do want James Duke on here.
Maybe I just ruined it for you.
Nah, you didn't do that. I'm sure he knows exactly what it's like. But I think it's funny that I like that you've met all these people and all this kind of stuff and had these interactions with people and nothing bad. James Duke's a great player, and he from how you described him in videos I've seen, he looks like a sweetheart. So we'd love to have him and other people too as this continues. But we want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
For coming and talking.
Anytime you want me to come on, just yell at me. I'm 15 minutes away. So
sounds good. We'll definitely have him back. Check out Westminster Effects pedals. WestminsterEffects.com.
Yep. As well as nosepedal.com. It goes to the same site. And make sure you subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts to the Westminster Effects Doxology podcast. And you can hear me, my pastor, and a Lutheran guy in Nebraska talk all things that could possibly be connected to Worship League.
There you go. Like, comment, follow, subscribe, the WorshipCast as well. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We do have a Twitter that works. It's alive. It's out there.
People are still on Twitter?
See, that's the thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next week.